going to start off with just a little bit to show you some pictures, give you some of ideas of what's our life's like. That's the house that we rent there in the Philippines, which is an answer to prayer. So it allows us to do workshops there. That's actually the pastor from the church plant that we're with. That's a pond that we fixed up that was already in the yard. Jack's work area in the back, he just fixed up that area. You can see it's ready for people to come for trainings in welding. This is one of his welding workshops. Often it's church workers. That's actually the pastor, and they're working on a new light for their church. Sign, I mean. This is something they built for our home. This is my part of doing puppet ministry and building new puppets, ventriloquism, and other things. Preparing for Cambodia, this is what my workshop downstairs looks like. Learning how to make, what do you call them? Mascot heads for our ministries. Preparing for workshops. We use the house for all this kind of stuff. Writing scripts to get out so others can use them.
Welding graduation.
Yeah, welding graduation here. More preparing for workshops. Preparing for workshops. These kind of trainings, these happen to be mostly from our church there, but this can go on anyone who asks. So some was how to twist balloons, share the gospel, clowning. We have volcanoes that go off, and the smog alerts come even into the city where we live. Learning about the culture, spending time with, these are kneeling carabao. It was a festival we finally got to go to. In the mountain regions, those are ancient rice terraces. This is enjoying time with church workers, and that's our pastor, and getting to go somewhere we haven't been in a long time. This is Cambodia Mission Outreach. I had to fix up puppets that were sent to the Philippines, and then we did a one-day workshop for people to know how to use them.
And that's the young pastor there building a platform for his church.
Filipina missionary here that we have a partner who helps with her medical needs that she has because of goiter. Sometimes what I do is just assist in Sunday school, and we meet outside on the stairs because we don't have another room in the building. And here I've made some games for them to do in time if the teacher's not there, or after we finish, there's still a lot of time before the parents are done. And so I made magnetic fish, and the kids love it. So that's part of my job as a missionary, to think of little things like that to help the workers there. There's our Sunday morning, which I help in Sunday morning. We attend Saturday night, and we meet on the stairs. Like, that's our little amphitheater. This is training in Cambodia, which our team was able to go to this year. Now, all these children are from different neighborhoods that our church reaches out to and sends the mobile kids ministry out to. And one time a month, they bring everybody in. And this is actually a dental mission. If you see a curtain on the other side, the dentists are behind that. So all these kids are getting free fluoride treatment, because not all these kids will see a dentist because of the poverty level there. Most people don't, and that's, we train their team, and this team now is also a leadership team. But imagine 12-year-old kids having gum disease already because they don't get dental care. So, but partnering with other people that the Lord's brought us into contact. My closest friend there is a dental missionary. You know, just how Lord works things together just to meet the needs of the people. Yeah. Another welding workshop here. Jack sometimes builds basketball hoops and setups.
Children's outreach and needed a basketball goal for their
We have small groups. That's part of the feeding program before, and this is actually sending out packages for the feeding program. This is Cambodia again, another outreach. And that's a picture we saw already. That was actually making, yeah, you can go ahead and stop because I think we're back at the beginning now. The last thing was their project they had to make at the end of the class together, and it wound up being a shoe rack for us. And but you know, it gave them practice. And in the Philippines, you don't wear your shoes inside. I think most Asian countries you don't. So we needed a place to stack it up. Unfortunately, we have to stack them inside now because our dog eats things like shoes. So, But I'm going to go ahead and start off, and then Jack is going to come up after me. So I was just, in one of my devotions earlier this week, I just thought it really related to things. And so I was going to go ahead and share that, because as you see from the things we do, it really doesn't look so foreign from life here, does it, or ministry here. So we might do some things a little different way, and maybe you don't twist balloons or do clowning or puppetry or welding, but all these things are a part of life, right? Life for people, and it's a way that you can minister to others in the Lord. So what I wanted to share is in Luke chapter 19, starting at verse 12. Jesus told a parable, and let me go ahead and read part of that. He said, "A man of noble birth went to a distant country to have himself appointed king and then to return. So he called 10 of his servants and gave them 10 minas. Put this money to work," he said, "until I come back." But his subjects hated him and sent a delegation after him to say, "We don't want this man to be our king." He was made king, however, and returned home. Then he sent for the servants to whom he had given the money in order to find out what they had gained with it. The first one came and said, "Sir, your mina has earned 10 more." "Well done, my good servant," his master replied. "Because you have been trustworthy in a very small matter, take charge of 10 cities." The second came and said, "Sir, your mina has earned 5 more." His master answered, "You take charge of 5 cities." Then another servant came and said, "Sir, here is your mina. I have kept it laid away in a piece of cloth. I was afraid of you because you are a hard man. You take out what you did not put in and reap what you did not sow." His master replied, "I will judge you by your own words. You wicked servant, you knew, did you, that I am a hard man, taking out what I did not put in and reaping what I did not sow? Why then didn't you put my money on deposit so that when I came back, I could have collected it with interest?" And we'll stop there. But so this nobleman goes out in a far country, and for the people then, it wasn't an unusual story, because that's how people, like Caesar put other people in place. Kings put people under them in place. So the nobleman would go to whoever the ruler was, and the ruler would either put them in place or not put someone else in place. So there was that kind of politicking going on, that while you were gone, the people who don't want your master, right, your nobleman to be the ruler, well, it's probably going to make things rough on you. So that's kind of the setting there, that when this master goes, there's going to be people out there that don't want things to go well for those who are left behind, because they don't want things to go well for the master either. And so the master says, "Here you go. I'm giving each of you a mina." And there's 10, but I think that Jesus only relates a sample of them, because it's like a sample of us. He doesn't have to go through all 10. We can imagine for ourselves the responses that people would have. And so he gives them a mina, and in one of the Bibles that I had, the note said it was like about 3 months worth of wages. So, and then he says, go out and use this, right? Like, engage in trade until I return. And some people think it's like saying, "Hey, I want you to go out, do your best, prove yourself, make hay while the sun shines, and when I come back, I want to see how successful you've been." But I'm not so really sure that that's what it's about. I think it's more about, hey, I want to see what kind of steward, what kind of servant you really are. I want to see if you're one of the faithful ones that I can trust, that while I'm gone, you're going to carry on everything as though I were here still, and carry it on in my name. And so I think it's more of a matter of faith than success, because they don't always look the same thing, like the same thing. I think of Nate Saint. He was one of the missionaries that went to the Auca Indians and the tribes, and they were violent tribal people, and they hadn't been reached yet. And so Nate Saint and the others that went with him, they prayed about it, and a lot of people said, "No, don't go. You'll get killed." And they went anyways. And when they did go, there was a situation, and they did get killed on their first time that they, landed the plane and made contact. They were killed. It was a tragic event. But the thing was, it didn't seem successful to a lot of people. People wouldn't have thought that was successful. But they were faithful. And because of their faithfulness, those Indians later came to know the Lord. Their families actually went to those same Indians that killed Nate Saint and the others, and they served them. And those responsible for killing them actually came to the Lord. So it doesn't look like success, but it was faithful. They were faithful, and God used that, and God turned the hearts of those Indians later through faithfulness, not what we would necessarily call success. So, we assume maybe that the 10 servants are just going to be faithful. But remember the situation that's out there. Maybe that's not going to be the case because you're going out into a world that isn't going to be friendly to you. If you go out and write nobleman's, trade shop, then maybe people are going to do something to it because they know it belongs to the nobleman. So you're going to think of those things. Whether you're faithful or not, well, if you're faithful, you're going to do it anyways, despite what might happen. So they do their business or they don't do their business. And then the nobleman returns, and he returns with authority over the kingdom. Now remember, he gave them the money in their hands, trusting that he would come back. And it was for it was for a time period when he would return, and they should have been looking to that. And they also should have realized that when he put that mina in their hand, he was giving them authority, right, to act in his place. So he comes back, and he's looking for faithful servants, not necessarily successful servants, but faithful servants. And, think about it. What if one of those servants made a lot of money, but then he was embezzling or something like that? Is that the kind of person that he wants serving him? It's not. So he's looking for faithful servants. And he goes through, and the first servant, says, "Oh, I've taken yours, I've made 10. And he puts him in charge. He gives him authority over 10 cities because he's been a faithful servant. What the nobleman put in his hands, he used. He went out. He went out into the world, and he applied it. And the same one for the other one that came by, who said, "Oh, I've got 5 more." And then he said, "Oh, you can be in charge of over 5 cities, right? Because you were faithful. You took care of my authority while I was gone. In my name, you did it." And then we come up to the last one, and the last one says, "Hey, I've hidden it because I knew you were a terrible master. You take things from people that's not even yours." That's basically what he said. It's like, you're a marauding invader, who takes loot from other people. And in those days, that's not necessarily a bad thing to call somebody. Some people would have thought that's good. Even David did that sometimes. When he overcame people, then he would take their, the goods. That's what happened then. So the problem here is that it looks like that guy was just justifying himself for why he didn't do anything with the authority that was given to him, why he didn't go out. He was probably taking care of himself and saying, "No, if I go out there, this is going to happen to me, and I don't want that to happen to me. So I'm just going to protect myself while he's gone." But he justified it by saying, "I knew you were this terrible guy, and you're one of these marauding invaders, but if that's the truth and that's really what you thought, how would you have responded? Would you have just held on to that and waited and not done anything?" I think I would have been a little afraid of him and done something, so I had something to show. So it's kind of looking like he's just making up an excuse, and it's not even the truth either. And he knows. But I think of that because, it's not about, I think you could have gone down the list and said, "Hey, taking it and going out and applying it anyway, the master would have given you authority over something because you would have proved yourself faithful to him. The only one who did not is the one who had something and didn't do anything with it. He didn't show that he trusted. He didn't show that he was doing anything in the master's name." So it's just like these things. It doesn't necessarily matter, right? If it's puppetry, if maybe you can do carpentry, maybe you're in school and it's the way that you can respond to your friends around you, or you're in work and it's the way that you respond to people around you. Whatever God has given you, right? It's not about money. It's whatever God has given you. Are you going out and sharing that in his name, the way that he would do that? So I really love that story. And Jack is going to go ahead and share.
So I'm a tool guy. Anybody else here tool guys? You know, Lowe's is our Kids R Us. Yeah. So, which is good because that's also my ministry. But I'm going to talk about tools a little bit this morning. So we got visual aids. So, hammer, right? What does a hammer do? Drive nails. Okay. All right. So we've got a nylon tip hammer for soft things, so you don't want to mark it up. Leave it. And mason's hammer, chipping brick, cutting brick. So we got 3 hammers there. But, you know, you can use a hammer for a paperweight. You could use a hammer for a doorstop or just a boat anchor or wheel chock, anything. But that's not what it's designed to do. Different hammers have different purposes. Paul talks about this in Ephesians 4, verses 7 to 12. It tells us that Christ himself has given each of us different gifts and designed us for different purposes. It was he who gave some as apostles, some as teachers, some as prophets, some as evangelists, some as pastors and teachers, to equip the body of the saints. And that's key here. We all have gifts to equip the body of the saints. Now, if we were to imagine what a hammer might think, you know, it probably wouldn't enjoy beating on things. It'd probably be uncomfortable, you know, hurt your head or whatever. You know, the hammer might complain, why am I made like this? Why am I made to hammer things? And truthfully, we do that too. You know, we look at other people and say, well, I wish I had their voice. I wish I had their gift. Wish I could do that. But, you know, Paul in Romans 9:20, Paul quotes Isaiah saying, shall what is formed say to the one who formed it, why did you make me like this? And in 1 Corinthians verse 12 is a famous passage. Paul addressed the giving of different gifts by comparing it to different parts of the body. Each part has a specific purpose. Although some may seem more noble than other or more important, they all serve an important function within the body. We have feet, we have eyes, we have ears, we have noses, you know, hands. Everything serves a certain purpose. Now we're going to go back to the question, what does a hammer do? A hammer doesn't fulfill its purpose until it does what it's designed to do, right? You know, a carpenter's hammer doesn't fulfill purpose until it pounds a nail. But really, this was a trick question. A hammer doesn't do anything. These hammers, the whole time I've been here, haven't done anything. It's not until they are used by someone that they fulfill their purpose. Someone who knows what they're designed to do and has a use for them. That's when they fulfill the purpose. Sometimes you need a specific type of hammer for a job. And sometimes you can make do with something else. You know, we all have the adjustable hammers, crescent wrench, or socket wrench handle, or what. But you know, having the right tool for the right purpose makes the work much quicker and easier. So we were designed by God for a specific purpose in mind. And we can live our lives doing what we want or holding back, but we will never fulfill God's purpose for our lives until we allow him to use us for what we were designed. Now, there are those that come to church every week, week after week, listen to the word, and go home and go on with their lives. But like those hammers, they're not doing anything. He can, you know, if God has a calling on your life, and he can use someone else to fulfill that purpose, but we will miss the blessing that God has for us by listening to him. Isaiah 64:8. Yet, Lord, you are our Father, we are the clay, you are our potter, we are the product of your labor. So the Lord created us with a plan. 1 Samuel 3:10 when Samuel's serving in the temple and he was awoken at night. Samuel came to Eli, and then Eli instructed him to answer the Lord. Is that Samuel answered, "Speak, Lord, for your servant is listening." And that's the key word, listening. In the Hebrew culture, that meant just more than hearing. It meant listening to what someone has to say and applying it. You know, there's a difference between listening and hearing, and anyone who's married, their spouse can tell you that. So we are not all called to move across the world, the country, or the state to be a pastor or teacher or missionary, but we are all called to fulfill the purpose that we are created and called to do, whatever that may be. And tools, you know, you may not always use a tool every day, but it never loses its value, and it is always available when you need it. That's you know, key for tools. We never lose our value to God. We are valuable to God, and we just need to be available to God when He has need for us. Be ready for Him to use. And Sharon alluded to this also. I'll go on. You know, we all have tools, whether they're hammers, or for me, my ministry is actual tools, welding, drills, and all that. But we all have tools: listening, organization, preparing a meal, being hospitable. You know, we all have tools that we can use to equip the body of the saints. So my challenge for you is, you know, what is your tool? How are you using it? And are you available to be used? So we've got a few minutes left. Does anybody have any questions or anything about our ministry or the Philippines in general, or anything like that? Yes.
Quite a few of them have through the ministry. And like the one, if you saw the one excited older boy in the one video where they're fishing, he's a little bit of a rascal, but he's a wonderful kid. And he's one of the kids through our feeding program. That one of the small groups was some of the moms and that we work with. He comes to church. Well, they meet in his neighborhood now for the life group. He and his mom come Saturday night as well to the Saturday service, and he's at the kids' life program then. And he chooses to also come. They both come Sunday morning, so he can come to it all 3 times. So it's a real lighthouse for the kids. And a lot of these kids then will accept the Lord in this age through ministries, even because we're not pastors, so we're lay people and support personnel in the for the churches. That's why we're there. But our larger ministry has these kids ministries all over, wherever they are, even in other countries, and this is part of it. And then as the kids are discipled, you're going to see these kids be the future leaders in the church. The ministry is very good with discipleship. That's a real strong point. So they've got they also do small groups with the kids, and they're doing the small groups with the moms, and getting them involved when they're old enough into different ministries. So one of the things I'm praying about when we go back is, and I've got the okay from the pastor, is to try to see if we can't start something once or twice a month where we get some of the kids. We'll start with a small group of the kids and disciple them, because some of them don't have their whole complete families, or maybe the dad's not saved or something like that, and so what they're getting at home is just kind of one-sided or whatever. But also pull them into a program where some of the other adults from the church will come out and will do something, like maybe teach them how to do something, and then a little construction thing or just something, and then have some fun afterwards. But in that, you're always there's always a time, like before you start, where we share, like we do just a little kind of Bible study sharing thing. And they get to talk about it too. So praying about something like that so that they have other people in their life within the church that they're really comfortable with and they know they can come and talk to. Yeah, I don't know the number, but a lot of the kids do accept the Lord so imagine that size group, and then in one of the neighborhoods for VBS, when they had the outreach, there were probably at least that many kids there that you saw in the church here for the VBS, and not all of those. Only a small group in that area so far were attending church, and a good number of the kids accepted the Lord, and there were even some teens in the back. And I was praying the one day that I went to be there for the guys in the back, because one was like really listening, and you could just see it, and some of the others might have been joking around or something. So, praying that he was really listening, and that, so they did. And then afterwards, the funny thing was, I'm the English speaker, right? I speak a little Tagalog, but not real well yet, even though I'm trying. And they were like, I was like, going to some of the teens in our group, you should go up and talk to these guys and invite them to church, so they feel comfortable, because they'll be comfortable with you. And they're all going like, you go talk to them. So I did go talk to them, and then the others all started talking, so I don't know why they wanted me to talk to them. So anyways, maybe just, so I would use a little Tagalog or something. Maybe they were trying to encourage me in that way. And so those guys had started coming to church. So it's really effective because it's every week, and they're going there and they're discussing things with the kids. They actually, the team leaders there actually had attended one of my workshops, and they just really took off with things. So they do like a video program they take into the areas they go, because it's easier than taking like a bunch of puppets. Oh, closer. It's easier than taking a bunch of puppets with you in the stage and everything. So they make their little video program. They take a TV and their USB and a couple leaders, and then they can go into the areas and kind of do the lessons there, even to kids who aren't making it in except for that once a month day. So they go out, but so they are hearing the gospel once every week, those kids. And so imagine that, what you saw in there, and all the church plants under Global Surge. That's what they're being taught to do. So there's just, I can't even count the number of kids being reached, and then through those kids, the families also. And sometimes it's through things you think would be kind of foolish. One of the other young men who's a trainer, well, he's 30, late 30s now, started in his 30s. And he was kind of shy and was working not time in ministry, and he started doing the puppetry, he decided to go full time into the children's ministry. And then he wound up being challenged to go make 100 disciples, and it was like really scaring him. How do you make 100 disciples, right? Would you get scared if someone said, I want you to go out and make 100 disciples? And you'd be like, what? What am I going to do? And that's what he did, and his pastor said, well, what has God given you to use? And he said, you have the puppetry. Well, go find out how you can get in one of the schools. And he did that. And he'd been really disappointed, because we were trying to get him to come to the U.S. for some training here, and he didn't get to come. Instead, he was there, and I told him, well, the Lord's got something for you if he's not letting you come to the U.S. He's got something else for you. And this is what he had. He went into these schools, and by the end of it all, they'd started small groups with kids. He got into what do you call the class again? I always forget.
Values class.
Values class they have in all the schools there. And, so they wound up having over 100 people being discipled. The teachers had a small group. The kids invited the pastor to come in once a month. This is like a private public school that he was going to. It's just, he was scared because he didn't, and now he's studied to be a pastor. So he graduated from, it's Global Life University now, through Global Surge. It's funny the things God can use in your life. It's just, somebody else applies something, and then it reaches somebody else, and you never know. How did I know that puppetry might help encourage him in that walk in some way? You know, and you never know. You know, so just be faithful in whatever it is and reaching out to somebody else and taking that step, even if you're nervous. Take the step because you just never know. Yeah. Any other questions? Yes. Mhm. 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 So a lot of the kids over there, they don't have much, and they're not sure where food's coming from every day. Even the small group members, with the larger group of women that we were meeting with, they don't always know where where they're getting all their food for every day. Um, so that's a lot of people in the Philippines and a lot of the areas that we're reaching out to and that our other churches reach out to. And our team here at this church is doing like a feeding program, or they're also sending some food home and helping keep an eye on the kids and establish relationships. But you know, it's sometimes kids are so malnourished that it affects their bodies. So you know, it can be really sad, and it's right there near you, within walking distance of your church. You know, so when they go out, we can find out about, you know, some of these kids that are really having needs like that. But there is a lot. So we're able to get often what we're doing. Even before I came, there's just so many kids. You know, my friend, who's a dental missionary over there, I used to send stuff before I was a full-time missionary to her to use because she would give out clothes. And one time a kid came in and she thought it was a pair of pants, but what it was a pair of like sport shorts, and they had been pinned up. They were ripped, the seam all the way, and they'd been pinned with safety pins all the way up and down here.
Older brother's sport shorts, like.
Well, I don't know whose,
were
but it could be, yeah, whatever, ripped
way
up.
too big for him, yeah.
And he was getting some dental care. This is under another ministry, but just an example. And I had sent her a buying box with clothes, kids' clothes, for the purpose that she gives out a pair when they come in for their dental treatment. Because these families are getting help because they don't have all the things they need. And when she gave them a pair of, it was a pair of shorts and a shirt. And they were either in really good shape or maybe a new pair I'd found on really a good sale at Walmart. And so after they put them on, the mom was basically crying because she said, you know, here we are, you know, this is an answer to prayer. We don't have anything to give you. You've already, you know, done free dental care for him. And then, you know, now he has these new clothes. And the little boy was so excited about them. Some of these kids, you know, they have very few toys. I've seen kids that are using like not even a magnifying glass, a piece of convex glass that they're using to burn like little ants because that's a game boys play, you know. But there's so much poverty. Yeah. So the things we do in Balak buy-in boxes would be like clothing. And we just focus on, I mean, there's all ages, but we have basically been focusing on what's in the kids program that we minister. So like ages 4 through 12, boys and girls. Sometimes we come up a little shorter on boys' stuff, I guess, because boys wear their things out. So sometimes we don't get as much stuff for boys. So good used clothing. It doesn't have to be new. Even shoes. Yeah, used is fine, you know, just in good shape. Toys, like it could be good used Matchbox cars or new Matchbox cars, or like Beanie Babies in good shape. You know, smaller things, because we stuff a lot into a big box. We found effective ways to get a ton of things into these big boxes called bollock bind boxes. And could be school supplies, crayons, pencils, colored pencils, probably not like the paper, because they use a different kind of notebook over there, but drawing paper. If it's a ball that inflates, deflate it just so it can be packed better. But any smaller things that kids would like to play with, because they have very few toys. I mean, if you're worrying about where your next meal's coming from, or it's a really, really cheap toy that breaks really easily, you know, that they come up and down and sell around the neighborhoods or something. Kids get a lot of candy, so which isn't a good thing when you don't have all the right foods. And yeah, so there's little candies that they get. So I mean, you know, we're used to probably eating a whole chocolate bar. They get little things and they're sharing it with other people, you know, with their family members and everything. So yeah, I guess anything. Also little things, treats like, it would be a treat to get something like, you know, like the spreadable ham in a can, or little Vienna sausages and stuff like that. And it could still be some candies and things too, but mainly we focus on the clothing and the toys, little cars, trucks. Same kind of things I guess you would put in boxes for Samaritan's Purse, too, that kind of thing, yeah. The peanut butter, I think, was for us.
But we end up
It's
sharing.
expensive over there, but we usually will share it with people. Yeah, and I like to teach them about apples with peanut butter. So, yeah.
It's probably about twice as expensive.
Yeah. I mean, they do have peanut butter over there. It's a sweeter peanut butter. So, yeah. Which is okay, but it's just more sugary. Yeah. Yeah.
So there's an old adage, people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. And so when you meet even a basic need or an extra need, that opens up the relationship, and they're willing to listen to what you. So the abject poverty there, the minimum wage will give it will cost over a half day's wage for a McDonald's meal. Over a half a day's wage for a basic Big Mac, fries, and Coke. Not that people are going, you know, people on that level are not going to McDonald's, but it would cost probably a majority of the people in that level are cooking a thin chicken broth and mixing it with rice. The rice is the filler. Rice is readily available and usually relatively inexpensive, but that would be their meal, a chicken broth over rice. So, you know, just that, you know, things, a level of poverty that we very, very seldom see here in the States is a way of life for many, many people there. And so any way that we can meet even just a basic need. When we first started going short term in another area of Bacola, I'd made a simple wooden truck toy for a young man that was just, a little boy that was just, he was just always around, a lot of fun to play with. And, you know, it wasn't anything simple. I used a hole saw to make the wheels, the wooden wheels. But I gave it to him. He said, I only had one toy, now I have two. And he's probably 8, 9 years old at this age. So imagine a young boy, 9 years old, having one toy. And so the rest of the week that we were there, the whole camp was pulling that toy around, that truck around with a string. He was so happy, but he was sharing it with everybody else. But that is the kind of impact that even just a little Beanie Baby, small Matchbox toy, anything like that's the impact that those toys are going to have. And we thank you so much for your support. We couldn't do near what we do without your support, and it's just an honor to be here and share with you and give you an update. Anything else? Or is that? I think we're probably over our time, but we're good if you are.